Wow. Please go
Okay,
ahead. Please
thank you
proceed.
so much. I'm just going to share my screen and then start talking so that everyone has something to look at.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Oh, can you guys see the Zoom toolbar below or no?
No, we see only your screen with your
Okay, perfect.
PowerPoint. Yeah,
So,
it's good
hi
to go.
everybody. I'm Ishita, and my name looks like that because my parents were into numerology when I was born. They got over it soon after, but my name stayed. It's actually pronounced as Ishita. And by training, I am a UX and service designer. But over time, I found my passion in healthcare. And I actually worked with a lot of clients over the last 10 years. So I've touched real estate, I've touched insurance, I've touched industries one can name. But eventually, I found my deepest joy in designing for health and healthcare. Today, I lead the health and health tech portfolio at my company, Techwity, where I serve as co founder and chief design officer. So, just to give a little bit background about Techwity, we convert innovative ideas to usable products. So, the way that we have learned to define or sort of bucket healthcare over time when it comes to design and technology is to look at it in three different segments. The first one is what we call care enablers and receiver ecosystems, which we also say is the patient, provider, and the insurance bucket. And within that, we sort of bifurcate healthcare into reactive and preventative healthcare. I know I'm in a group where I don't have to explain the difference, so I'm going to move forward. The second bit is a treatment enabler economic market, which is essentially your pharma companies, your diagnostic equipment manufacturers, etc. And the third is life sciences, which is more research oriented. Additionally, we bifurcate all of these into B2B and B2C based on who they serve. We've worked with a bunch of clients, right from Alto Neuroscience, which is a precision medicine company in the US that recently IPO'd. Laptis is actually a drug rehabilitation aggregator in the US. Resonately is for audiologists. Nura Health is from the US, but very big in India now. Vera Health works with PCOS. We've worked with Dr. Reddy's government of UK, MIT. All of these are the clients that we've touched upon in healthcare across the segments that I mentioned earlier. So coming to the point now about today's conversation. Today, because we have a time frame of 20 minutes, I thought we could do justice to this topic of how to turn your health tech product into a conversion machine using UX design, and the importance of really designing for first time users that come to your platform and try to find value in it. And how do you make sure that a person who's come to view your product actually becomes a paying user? So it does not, this is more generic. Everything you'll see today is more theoretical, which has been tried and tested before by us across multiple different health tech products. So you can take what makes sense to you, and the rest is just knowledge. So in design, we say PLG versus SLG, which basically means product-led growth versus sales-led growth. And what that means is that any healthcare, health tech startup or mid-sized company that comes to us says that they are either designing a product for it to work and sell by itself, or sales-led growth is essentially when a founder or a team actually goes to someone's office, shows them the product, tries to sort of sell it in person. So there are two approaches, and this business decision really dictates how we design for products. Was someone trying to say something right now? Okay. So in Techquity, we say that PLG, which is product-led growth, should be treated as a default setting, no matter which route you go, mainly because your product should be so intuitive and so usable that anyone can go to your website, understand what you do, log in, and if they find value in it, start using it all by themselves independently. So this is a small distinction chart between sales-led and product-led growth. But essentially, the points we want to look at here is the customer experience between sales-led is actually driven by sales and support team, whereas in product-led, it is driven by intuitive product experiences. They all have their own challenges. They both have their own success metrics. But this is the point I'd like to focus on. Um, so why should product-led growth be a default setting? Why should your product be able to talk for itself and not require explanations from a salesperson at all times? Firstly, we've observed that trust in health tech is built through experiences and not sales decks. People really trust products when they feel confident to use them by themselves. Secondly, it shortens the sales cycle by creating internal champions. If a person in an organization who falls under your TG stumbles upon your product and really like what they see, they will internally sell it anyway without you being there. The third is product-led growth fuels usage data that makes your sales pitch unbeatable. It helps you understand how scalable your product is, how independently people use it, and how confident they feel when they use your solution. Fourth is once onboarded, retention is rooted in how smart the product makes your user feel. So this is not something a person will say out loud, but if your product feels easy to use, people really love that they've tried something new, they've used it actively, and they were able to derive value without external support. So if a user feels smart by using your product, they are more likely to stick. Fifth is at some point you will leave the room and your clients will reconvene to make a decision. So actually a lot of founders that we speak to, especially in the early stages, they tell us that we really don't want to focus on our website right now because, we're actually pitching in person. But the truth is like that pitch meeting is one meeting. Nobody really takes notes. And the moment you leave the room, people want to jump back into your ecosystem, check your product, check your website, understand how it feels, show it to a few people in their organization. The sixth is onboarding training and offline support are a compounding drain on time and money. So without a UX intervention, products are only as good as development is able to make them. And it ends up resulting in a lot of onboarding training. Someone has to go on site, train people. Then when people are trying to use the product, they'll keep reaching out to support if they can't find the things they're looking for, if they get stuck in places. So all of this can be avoided by UX design methodologies getting involved early on in your product. So when we say product-led growth from the lens of UX design, here is how we see the customer journey coming forth. So you will observe multiple layers here. And we are really focused on a first-time user here who's coming to your website, figuring out what you do, and then entering your product to see if it's of value to them. So it's in multiple layers, and a user generally goes from layer 1 to layer 8. And if we say in UX that if a person successfully goes past layer 8, they will stay with you for a long time. So we will today be jumping deeper into this. But before I go into this, does anyone have any questions? No questions?
Not yet, perhaps. Ishita, please go ahead.
Okay. So here, any user who so here you see the layers, and here you see which touch point in your ecosystem sort of caters to it. So any user who first comes to your ecosystem, hears about your brand, will first check out your website. The first layer is called core problem communication. And core problem communication says that a user, when they first land on your website, think, how does this help me solve my problem? So cracking the first fold of your homepage is really, really, really essential, because this is the part where users are asking, is this for me and why should I care? So talk to your users and understand copy that users find relatable, visual representation, and call to action. These are the three components that make up the first fold of any homepage. We will see some examples after. Points to note here is it is really essential that you create a hook, be clear about who are you for, why do they need your product, what does your product do for them. We essentially have under 3 seconds to grab attention and drive users to explore our website. So messaging and design are key. If a user does not resonate with the first three folds of your website, they will drop off. Then one of the strategies that a lot of brands now use is they extract competitor deficiencies and they make them a part of their key communication. So for example, if your competitor's solution is very helpful but very difficult to use, you might say that you can do XYZ and also it's user friendly. So that, and then positioning is so tight that no one needs to talk to sales. A nice idea to use a verb first headline which talks about value or pain relief in 5 to 7 words, and a subline that explains how you deliver that value and who it is for. Always lead with a pain or transformation. So we look at a few examples now of really good first folds, some made by us, some just sourced from the internet that I really like. So this is for one of the brands that we were working with. It's called Vera Health, and Vera Health does PCOS subscription plans for women. This is their first fold when we found it, which said ready to conquer PCOS, get access to PCOS specialized gynacs, nutritionists, fitness experts, all in one place. Now, when we got this, one of the problem statements that we were working with is that people don't even go past the second fold; they immediately leave the website. So as we delve deeper into user research, we realize that the main the main hook that's missing here is actually emotional messaging, because PCOS is a very harsh condition. A lot of women who suffer from PCOS are generally frustrated with the condition. They're trying to do a lot of things that they're not able to do. Bodies are working out differently. So we realized that the way to sort of grab user attention and to help them feel like this brand really understands what they are going through, we changed the messaging to emotional messaging and actually put up bullet points from the complaints that we got from our user interviews. So we said instead of saying ready to conquer PCOS, we're going to say stop suffering with PCOS. And then we put a few use cases here for very common things we got in like our 50 user interviews, which is, are you tired of your family telling you to lose weight? Do you have hunger pangs that are getting out of control? Are you feeling alone when friends talk about regular periods? Are you sad about not getting pregnant after several attempts? And then we say that if you're ready to take charge and change the narrative, you've come to the right place. So it's the same brand giving the same thing, but there is a stark difference between this and this, because here a user actually starts feeling seen. Also, we change the static image from like a static, very healthy looking doctor to an actual user testimonial. So this is actually a video which doesn't play in this presentation for some reason, but this is a video of a user actually talking about how she felt with her body undergoing change and how she decided to take charge and how Vera Health stepped in and it was a really good idea and consistency gave good results. So this emotional messaging shift actually increased the conversion metrics by 25% at the time. People started exploring further. This primary CTA started getting a lot of clicks. So this is one example of why the first fold of your website matters and why it's at top of the iceberg. This is another client that we work with, which is called Alto Neuroscience. This is their redesigned website, which basically positions them as the future of psychiatry, saying that the future of psychiatry is precision. And then they say that we develop biology-driven medicines for neuropsychiatric conditions so that patients can get better faster. So I did not have a earlier screenshot of the website because this has gone live now. But earlier, the website again spoke like a lot of medical jargon and spoke about like why this brand is really good and what they offer. But we sort of converted it to something that a specialist would understand who this is intended for without making it too complicated for a secondary audience to understand. This is also another client that we work with, which is Leaf Care, and they essentially handle care record management in the UK. So UK has a lot of care homes where children who have parents or guardians that are unable to take care of them are sort of admitted. So this is something we made for them. Then there is Maven. This is not a client, but again, they do a really good job of emotional messaging along with really relatable photography, and it just comes together. So that is the first layer of the iceberg, which is the landing fold. Of the moment you convince a user at this point and you help them find relatability, they are ready to go to the next step, which is information for decision making. So after they've sort of resonated with your offering, they need more information to make a decision of becoming a paid user. So then they go into this mind frame of, okay, does this help me solve my problem? So In this stage, UX looks at basically de-risking the decision to try your software. And this is a lot more applicable to B2B, but it is essentially to say that how do I sound smart to my boss and de-risk the decision of trying a new software? Does your website have a dedicated section that I can send to a relevant person in my team to say, hey, let's try this software? So this step actually talks about creating dedicated customer pages, something that one can directly send internally. You index on communicating how well you are doing something. So, for example, with Vera Health, we actually, in the earlier days, showed a screenshot of one of the main parts of the app, and it highlighted the 6 different features that the app offered. This is another example from Genev, which basically segregates their platform navigation into for patients, for clinicians, for employers. So you can go to a section that's relevant for you, see how this brand applies to you, and then sort of take it from there. This is one of our clients from legal tech, but essentially they have a section dedicated to health tech, and it says that this is what SpotDraft can do for health tech businesses. And again, like I said, they give like a very curated page to talk about how they support healthcare businesses. So if you wanted to work with SpotDraft, you wouldn't actually send the homepage URL, you'd send this one because this is just bang on like for health tech. How brands generally showcase this segregation is through their navigation. In their solutions, they bifurcate by industry. So they'll say this is what we do for SaaS, EdTech, FinTech, Health Tech, HR Tech. Like that, Health Tech can also bifurcate into the multiple different segments that it taps into to help a user find the relevant section for them. So once this is also done, people are ready to log into the product. And if it convinces them, of course, they're ready to log into the product and see, okay, how easy is this to actually try? And this is the point at which UX sort of creates intended friction. And what I mean by that is friction is created to either add value during onboarding or disqualify non-users. So one of the things that serious brands always do, the ones that don't want non-users to just sign in and play around with their platform, they will always add a payment layer when you're trying to sign in. Even if it's free for a week, you're still inputting your credit card info. And a lot of times, I know that as users, we get really annoyed, like, why are you asking me for money before I even try your platform? But the intention is that these brands don't want to open their interfaces to users that are not serious about adoption. So that, and then in onboarding, what is the one thing that you can do before somebody gets into the product that makes it 2 or 3x faster for them to derive value or get what they're expecting? So what that means is if I log in as a patient, can I choose an option which says that I'm logging in as a patient and then the product loads accordingly for me? So don't overwhelm user with multiple instructions as soon as they enter, create progressive learning curves, and essentially make it really very easy for the user to take their first set of actions as they log into your platform so that there is immediate comfort and understanding and confidence of being able to use your solution. Then fourth is value discovery. So how easy is it to learn how to use the platform? So this is all coming down to navigation. So basically we say that this is like hosting a really good party. When you enter the party, you look at the entire venue and you know where the bar is, you know where the restroom is, you know where the social area is. So the same way when a user enters your platform, they should know what is where at their first glance, which is where navigation plays a really important role. The dashboard plays a really important role. The information you choose to highlight, the steps you make them take, everything that a first time user does is very crucial and directly impacts conversion. Then the fifth is time to their first aha. So how quickly do they actually get value? And what this means is minimize the time it takes to perform the first set of tasks and successfully complete something. So if I am entering a platform where I need to schedule an appointment with a therapist, I should be able to enter it. I should be able to get past the steps and reach that success state of booking as quickly as possible. And the platform should actually celebrate my first success state with me because I have been able to do something by myself and finish a transaction. So how you celebrate when the user finishes their first transaction also creates a lasting impact. And then once they get past this, the entire retention loop becomes about repeatable value. So, how often is a user able to derive value from the platform? How are you creating a retention loop? How do we keep them in loops of accomplishments? When I finish one task, how does the platform guide me to the next task? How is this designed for a simple versus an advanced user? Because both of them have very different usage patterns. An advanced user, if you make them go through a platform with a lot of instructions, they'll get really frustrated because they already know what they're doing. And then it's like, okay, this platform is so annoying because it's continuously giving me instructions that I don't want. Whereas for a simple user, if you don't give enough instructions, they'll feel lost and they'll not know what to do and they'll leave the platform because there's just too much to figure out. So we sometimes design very different flows, and this is a question that we ask when the person enters the platform for the first time. Have you used a solution like this before, or are you new to the ecosystem? And then the last question is, can my product entirely replace or get adopted by a business function? So who is going to use this product? Will it be adopted by an entire administration division in a hospital? Will it be used by a nurse in a clinic? Will it be used by an audiologist during an appointment? So who's really using it, and how does that adoption work? And how does my continuous value retention loop work for that environment of operation? The seventh is monetization. One of the biggest mistakes that we've seen a lot of companies make is that they jump into monetization really fast before they crack the first six steps. But the truth is, without the first six steps, monetization will never give real results. Till a user does not find repeatable value in your platform, they will simply not pay. So, monetization then talks about how does pricing work, and what's the main thing that we're pricing against. So monetization is actually a very complex topic, but it's essentially about deciding what makes most sense for your brand. Is it a freemium version? Is it a free trial? Is it a reverse trial? So a lot of different aspects inform these decisions, but the correct time to figure monetization is after the first six steps. Then eighth and the last step is flywheels. So how do we create opportunities for users to bring in more users? Now, there are multiple ways to do this, and I'll give you examples from non-health tech contexts. But something like Zoom, users will naturally invite other users. So even if I'm not a Zoom user, but today I've been invited to join this meeting, I am now a Zoom user because I've been invited. Or like Stripe, which basically turns the product into a billboard. I don't have to be a Stripe user, but I will stumble upon that payment gateway by transacting through their customers. Third is shareable, so new user acquisition through network effect. So stuff like when you email from your iPhone, it says sent via iPhone. Fourth is encouraging UGC. So it's basically user generated content and how you can use that to leverage brand value. And last is triggering word of mouth. How do you really get your community to talk about your product, sell it to the people around them, recommend it to relevant people? So hence we say that sales led growth and product led growth together can be a double edged sword in healthcare. It translates to offline personalization and online excellence, and both really feed into each other. That is it for today. I think I've spoken a lot. If anyone has any questions, I'm very happy to answer them now. And I hope this wasn't too long.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Ishita. I think it was very nice. Open to questions from the audience. Please go ahead.
I think this was a really nice presentation, Ishita. Thank you for putting together. All of these are very deep topics by themselves. Having worked at Google in the past for 11 years, I know how much of research goes into this. Thank you for covering all the topics.
Thank you. I've tried my best to sort of make them as concise as possible for 15 minutes.
No, fantastic work. And, we might, we are building something at this point. So I might reach out to you,
Definitely.
so I think once I get the recording, I'll probably get your coordinates from there.
Sure. You can share it in the chat as well, Ishita, if you like, right
Yeah.
away. Yeah.
I'm quite active on our WhatsApp, so you'll find me anyway.
Sure, sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Or in this Zoom chat as well, if you like. I had a question, and I've experienced this, and I've had this argument about sales-led growth and product-led growth with some of the startups that I've been associated with. the answer I get from the founders is that in health tech, we need to unfortunately go and be at the door of the customer. Even Eka Care, I knew the team that was working on it, and what I had heard was that they put a fairly big sales team in place in the beginning. They reached about 5,000 customers, and then they went into digital sales-led, product-led growth, right? So just curious, especially in enterprise sales, it's very, very challenging because you're not talking to the end user, you're talking to a bureaucrat essentially,
Yeah.
and an administrator usually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. A procurement person or maybe a CXO, but still, I see them as bureaucrats really.
Yeah.
They're not the actual users. The doctors who are going to use your product are not there. I've seen in large hospitals, um, the way some of the smart guys got in was they actually, let the doctors start illegally using their software. So HealthPlix was being used in one of the hospitals I was associated with, and they were not supposed to be using it, but they were using it.
So I think the sort of point that I was trying to put out there, and maybe I don't know if it came out as intended, was that sales-led growth obviously cannot be eliminated, but sales-led growth is not an excuse for not perfecting your product, because sales-led growth is actually limited to one meeting or two meetings or three meetings, right? But what happens when you exit that room? What happens when I want to ask my team, hey guys, should we try this product? Then what am I showing them? I'm still showing them a half-baked website and the product as it is. So a lot of times founders come and say that, and this happens a lot with US clients as well now. They say that I don't want to invest in my website right now because I'm actually pitching to founders in person, or I'm pitching to hospitals in person. But a hospital will never share your really long PDF for decision making. They will always share a URL to your website or a free demo to your product when they internally want to take a decision. So it was basically to say that it's not either or, they both sort of work together.
Totally agree with you, and happy to recommend you to any of the startups that I work with. Anybody else with some questions?
Yeah, Bharat, this is Piyush. I thought,
Yeah,
let
please,
me,
please.
yeah. So quickly, particularly in health tech, now see if it is direct B2C, the journey would be different, and there's a different paradigm in itself. But in the healthcare context, there are many influencer always, right? So it's more a ecosystem play, right? There's nobody who can say that, yeah, I do a direct B2C without influence from a lot of people. So the hospital doctors is one big influencer. Then if there is a, let's say, a product company, either pharmacy or anything, that is another influencer which is there. So there are B2B2B models, and there are ecosystem models which are out there. Now what you're shown is predominantly, what I understood, is more B2C communication, right? It's more about brand positioning. It's more about how do you convey your message, your story, your thesis to the consumer. But what is the best way to create an ecosystem, and what is, because in that case, a simple product-led growth may not work, right? When you're trying to bring multiple players and actors to come, and because each will derive different value out of the whole platform. Any thoughts that you have experienced?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned in one of the points earlier, um, there is a heavy need to contextualize even on your website how it works for separate segments or separate user types, mainly because nobody will go through your entire brand to shortlist what is for them. So there was a slide that I showed earlier which spoke about how one of the clients actually segregates their offering into pages by industry. So how their offering is applicable to healthcare, education, blah, blah, blah. The same way for health tech, that might also mean that you're saying how is this applicable to insurance providers, patients, caregivers, etc. So I think the messaging and everything is applicable to B2B and B2C both. It's just, if you know who you're talking to, then your language sort of changes accordingly. So if I am a B2C brand, my copy will be more emotionally driven. because healthcare is a serious, it creates an emotional impact. Whereas if I'm doing B2B, I will go the innovation route, I will go the impact route, I will talk about ROI. So based on who my actual primary audience is, my homepage will always be for my primary audience, but I will always have bifurcated pages based on the types of users that can come in, so that people can immediately find stuff that is only for them. Does that answer it?
Yeah, it answers, and I think very well said. Any examples that you've come across, which is a good showcase in this? Because I've seen a few things, but I think they communicate very loosely to all the audiences.
Yeah.
Uh,
Fair, fair. I mean, I don't have a reference immediately, but I know what you're talking about. And we've actively tried to fix this for some of the clients we've worked with. So currently, we are working with this brand called Resonately in the US. And it's essentially a platform which assists audiologists to scribe their appointments into SOAP compliant templates.
mhm.
So for them, like when we are looking at the website now, we've sort of divided it into how this works for care providers versus organizations versus clinics versus independent practitioners, and why the pricing is different for everyone. How does the same thing sort of rework the interface to meet their use case, because the environments are very different.
Yeah, makes sense. So I think we will get in touch with you, Ishita. We are doing some work in this ecosystem play. So
I love
Excellent.
that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
great, Piyush. You're getting a lot of calls, Ishita. I'm sorry we're running out of time, but Aditya, if you have a question, since you're the next speaker, you can take this time and ask this question, and then we move on to you.
Of course, thank you. Thank you, Ishita. That was very well presented. Just going back to a very specific question on one of your slides, which said that once the seller leaves and then the clients reconvene and discuss among themselves. I think one of your slides did mention that. So, uh, why do you think that happens, and what exactly do you think they would discuss once the seller is off the room?
Got it. So, what we've observed or sort of experienced in our early client interactions is the way founders pitch their product. They will go in person to a client's clinic or a hospital's office room. They will present the product to a board of people. These
Mhm.
people might be decision makers on the front of product utility, but might not be decision makers on the money part of it. In which case, what they'll do is they'll take what they've learned here to their finance board and say that we find value in this. But when they're showing it to their finance board or internally huddling to take a decision, generally the founders are not involved.
Mhm. I
Right?
mean, if I had to give you a very specific example, let us say, I mean, I am a practicing diabetes and endocrinology specialist. So, if I give a patient advice on type 1 diabetes, I'll keep it very simply simplified. The patient then goes to a peer group and discusses among that peer group on what they can do to reach their outcome. So, what exactly is driving that behavior? I'm just trying to connect it because my next presentation, I'm very sorry, it goes completely against what you're saying. So, I'm so we are probably David and Goliath here, but so I was just trying to connect to what's happening.
Let,
Um,
let's hear you out. It's going to be wonderful, and maybe the questions after that will be even more interesting. So let's hear you
Possibly, yeah,
out,
yeah.
Dr.
I'm
Aditya.
ready to start, sir. Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you so
please go
much.
ahead. Please go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So I will share my screen. Just a moment.
Sure.
Hold on.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Please go
okay.
ahead.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, just one moment. I'm sorry. Okay, well, soon. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, sorry. Um, now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right. So, hi all. My name is Aditya. I'm a doctor practicing in the UK. I'm a specialist registrar in endocrinology and diabetes. I just moved to the UK, but practically this idea has been brewing in the background for a couple of years now. So, I think ideas get birth from abject frustration, friction, like Ishita was mentioning, and just and perhaps an internal motivation to make impact at among patients and the populace at large. So I was working in remote rural hospitals in India. I had my training in Narketpalli, Nalgonda, with Dr. Rakesh Biswas, who is actually the owner of this idea, if you had to. And we eventually collaborated and thought, yes, we have to scale it up a bit. So what we are trying to do is, I think it goes against what Ishita was saying. I and both Dr. Biswas, we rely on spontaneous order. And through our spontaneous excursions in healthcare, we realized that democratization of medical knowledge is lacking. And if you pitch up all other different systems, let us say IT, let us say a general market, the single most important stakeholder in a market is the buyer, and the single most important stakeholder in IT is the customer. The amount of autonomy and knowledge they have, and they are armed with knowledge and autonomy, accountability, is severely lacking in medicine. So what happens in medicine is someone has a problem, they consult a doctor, and the doctor is basically the owner of the medical knowledge, and he or she imparts some of that knowledge to the patient, and the patient is basically, renting his disease to the doctor. So unlike in IT systems where large swaths of ecosystems are open source, in fact, what Mr. Piyush Chauhan uh, was speaking about. So a successful ecosystem in my eyes is basically open source. The famous Linux project is extremely successful, and open source, inviting people without boundaries, perhaps in my limited experience, makes for successful projects. So we have created this idea called Pager, which essentially is patient journey records. So let's go back to a bit of medical history. Medicine 1.0, back in the year before technology really usurped from its roots, was narratives, patient narratives. So back in the days of William Osler, basically observing patients, minute recordings of what was happening, and just writing narratives of what was transpiring with the patient. So that was again written by the doctor, not the actual stakeholder of the disease, who is the patient. And then eventually we segued into medicine 2.0, which is, I think I'm completely displeased with medicine 2.0. It is insurance players, it is pathways, it is guidelines, it is shrinking patients to numbers. And again, I have no pet peeve against Ishita, but what she worked on, PCOS, that's basically boxing off a disease as a separate entity, perhaps. So what what we like to do is see patients as a whole, a complete package in themselves. And we wanted to study why patients do what they do and why do they have diseases. So what it led for us to discover is that they simply lack the medical knowledge, which is paywalled behind journals, which is paywalled. It's not simply open access. And when you don't have access to knowledge, you're not armed with enough education to basically lead your own outcomes. So what's happening is we've rented our diseases to doctors, to other allied healthcare practitioners, to insurance players, who they decide what you can do, pretty much in most healthcare systems, including the NHS. And it doesn't sit well with me, to be honest. It boils my blood, to be honest. So what we did is basically open access platforms. Number one, WhatsApp. We recruit patients. So basically, if you can see the website on my screen here, so Pager is patient journey records. Unlike the website shown previously, we used actual images. I'm not sure what is the selling point of this, but my idea is to keep it as original as possible. So we were again suggested to use models, and we may perhaps have a few model images like these, but we wanted to be in the flesh, use images from patients, be as realistic as possible, and perhaps make a connect with them. So what happens is once you get onto Pager, you So I'll give you an example first. So this is a 30-year-old female with type 1 diabetes. So it is a dreadful disease. You have to live with it for lifelong, and it just causes a huge problems, tertiary problems, everything. This lady was diagnosed in her 20s, yeah, and then she initially went in with vague symptoms, bloating, diarrhea, and after eating food, and eventually she was noted to have high blood sugar and then diagnosed with diabetes. She gets all these tests done, which prove she has diabetes. But through the process, she has multiple hospital admissions. She is basically unable to tailor her insulin doses to target proper outcomes. So I think the graphs are pretty small, but you can see how waxing and waning those sugars are. And this is diligent daily monitoring, which the patient thankfully, embraced. So she's doing that. She has something called a DKA, which is basically diabetic ketoacidosis, which is extremely high blood sugars due to absolute insulin deficiency, which happens in type 1 diabetes. And this prompts hospital admissions, possibility of infections, and some of them can even have heart attacks. And what eventually she got onto Pager, and we asked her to just create a daily log of what's happening in your life. Completely spontaneous, no guardrails, no. I used to be a big fan of the soap template, but I pretty much abandoned it because it is templated. And once you institute a template, it it puts guardrails on what you can do. So we've done away with the template. We just said log whatever you want to do, and this is what the I'll just share my screen. Yeah. So this is her self-created healthcare record. She is the owner of the disease. She's the owner of this data. She is basically telling us what outcome she wants. And this is her entire story. And this is basically what she does every day. What she eats, those are her food plates, and what insulin she takes, why insulin is waxing and waning every day. And eventually, I'll go back to this. We generally up titrated and removed her short-acting insulin. So basically, the short-acting insulin is to cover mealtime blood glucose spikes. And eventually, now she's just on once daily insulin. So normally, type 1 diabetics are on at least 4 or 5 times a day insulin. And we've brought her down to once daily insulin, and she's doing perfectly well. She's still sending her daily blood sugar numbers. So we've reached that outcome simply because we've educated our patients on what leads to bad blood sugar outcomes. We see their diet plates. We are telling them what is leading to high blood sugars. This is general knowledge to most of us, but some of them are still don't have access to this. So the patient can eventually see for themselves that, they can connect A, B, C, D. They can see to themselves that my chapati is causing a blood sugar of 230. And if that pattern consistently happens over days, perhaps they get insight into themselves, which is the final, I mean, the end goal of humanity, isn't it? Maslow's hierarchy, if you actually say it up, is self-actualization. You get insight into yourself. And at a at a bedrock, that is what we want to do with Pager. Give your patients medical knowledge and insight into themselves that they get they can basically chase the outcomes they want. So we don't tell them what to do. We don't tell them that this is what you have to do in spite of you wanting this. We tell them if this is the outcome you want, we'll try our best to get you there. And there's a couple of more cases I'd like to share. And yes, so this is this is a fantastic case. So this is an 80-year-old gentleman who had diabetes and hypertension for 30 years and eventually had kidney disease. So what happened is, now I'll bring in the aspect of medical students and how medical curricula should be designed as well. So he presented with dizziness to our hospital, recurrent episodes of dizziness on a background of chronic diabetes and hypertension, right? So, and imagine a rural 80-year-old gentleman who's not really well educated. I mean, Victorian model of education, if I had to say. He got onto Pager on WhatsApp, which is open source, which we thoroughly de-identify just in case. And then he shares his food plates, and we then see that what is so common in among Indian food plates is a large serving of rice with very little protein and very little fats as well. So then over time, we gradually notice his food plates. We explain that he basically starts seeing it for himself. All he needed was a log. We didn't really needed to educate him that, yes, this is causing all your diabetes problems. All he needed was real seeing his own diet plates daily and seeing his blood sugar patterns daily. And he eventually realized, of course, we prodded him gently that it was his rice which was causing a lot of his blood sugar spikes. And coming to his dizziness, we also diagnosed autonomic dysfunction. So it's basically the small nerves supplying your heart, which get damaged in diabetes, which is basically causing him dizziness when he changes from a sitting to standing position. And then we correlated blood sugars at the time of his symptoms and his blood pressure at the time of his symptoms. And then he himself realized that when his blood sugar was shooting past 220 in his case, now that is precision and accuracy. I'm not giving you a generic guideline based number. For him, when his blood sugar shot past 220, he noticed he was getting dizzy. And when it was less than 200 something, no symptoms whatsoever. So for this 80-year-old gentleman, the target is less than 200. No matter what any guideline is saying, no matter what any American Diabetic Association specialist is telling me. For this gentleman, we have a specific number and we have radically improved his symptoms. He does not feel dizzy anymore. His blood pressure is well controlled and he's symptom free above all else. And his blood sugar is doing reasonably well. So I will come to a SWOT analysis, but before that, this is one more infographic we got created. So he is a 63-year-old gentleman with obesity, hypertension, and of course, very common in India and all over the world. So he is, I think he was a college lecturer before, and he enjoys a drink every day at 7 in the evening since the last 43 years. Now, generic standard doctor advice would be stop drinking and you will feel well. Now, that is what a 10-minute consultation does. But in Pager, because Pager is conversational, it's on WhatsApp, it simply has conversations with patients. There are no guardrails. And I asked him one day, why do you drink, sir? And he said, I want to read economics. And so we went on a short detour onto discussing economics, and he felt so happy. We discussed about Keynesian models, we discussed about Paul Krugman and Milton Friedman, obviously. And he felt so happy. And he says drinking gives him the desire to think about economics. That is the accuracy and precision we want to chase with Pager. So no one has advised him to stop drinking alcohol. But if I click on one of these, you can see his blood pressure readings. And when he starts drinking, his blood pressure actually drops, perhaps because he's feeling better in himself. And this is his daily log of blood pressure. You can see he nicely writes drinking starts at the bottom, and his blood pressure is doing fairly well. So again, the standard dictum of blood pressure is get checked twice or thrice a day. And if you have consistently over so-and-so number, we'll diagnose you with hypertension. We'll put you on therapy. But what is the impact of blood pressure on the patient's lifestyle and what outcome does he want? He wants that his breathlessness is stable, that it does not want progression, and he wants to be pretty much well in himself with whatever he has currently. And he's doing well with his current advice. So we are just monitoring his diet. His diet plates are quite healthy, although I don't have, I don't have images of his diet plate, I'm sorry. But yeah, no generic advice on stopping alcohol. Although if I had to speak to a layman on the road, I will still advise him to stop him alcohol. But once he gets onto Pager, I may as well keep an eye out on why he's drinking. But yeah, it is the precision and accuracy we are chasing. And we have 5,200 such patients. What is happening is we are generating data, but the biggest bottleneck we are facing is with data collection. And that is where our biggest weakness is. I'm fully humble to acknowledge enough that this is completely manual based. So patients have to take pictures of their blood sugar numbers, uh, take pictures of their blood pressure numbers, type on WhatsApp, which is basically a bottleneck. And this only embraces those who are committed to doing all of this. And those who not even are remotely interested in this will simply fail on in getting onto our platform. So the SWOT analysis is basically that. So what I'm pitching for here, the principal reason why I'm presenting here is this. What we want to do is basically healthcare is what you're eating, what you're doing, and what outcomes it is bringing out. Apart from, of course, what you do outside of what you're eating and doing. So at the first step in the immediate future, we want to start on something which automates your macronutrient and micronutrient intake. So spectroscopic food analysis is something I am hedging my bets on. I've just done some due diligence on that, and it seems a near infrared range spectrometer can scan a food plate. So patients, as you can see here, they share their food plates through and through, and we have what thousands of such patients doing it, and we are all analyzing manually. But at some point, we'll reach breaking point, and we can't sustain this. So it has to be automated. It has to run by itself in the background, and of course we have AI tools. And so if I scan a food plate and I train what 10,000, 1 lakh, 20 lakh food plates, eventually a photo of a food plate will tell you what you're having, will tell you carbs, fats, proteins, what types of carbs, what types of fats and proteins, what spices you're having, because near infrared range spectroscopy can tell you what spices you're having, can tell you if your food has been adulterated. So in the long run, perhaps I'm not pitching for this, but in the long run, if let us say a critical mass is armed with a spectrometer and they're scanning their food plates and whatever they're having, that will make better markets. Because if the consumer is disappointed with your product, he now has evidence with himself or themselves to decide on if this product is not good for him and ask for something better. So that, I think the bedrock of this is give knowledge to the consumer and they make better markets. Simple. That's how I see healthcare should operate. And so how do students and researchers come into this? Patients tell you what outcomes they want. Students are eventually learning that they have to learn medicine to improve patient outcomes, not to pass exams, not to memorize guidelines, not to serve their insurance overlords or something. Just competency based medical education for patient outcomes. And we have a huge number of students who have actually helped us in our 5,600 patient quest. They have now improved their history taking to such precision and such accuracy that they're competent. They're much more competent. And I can tell you, having had experience in 3 countries, healthcare in 3 different countries, global competence is so bad, so average, that I don't think the medical school is producing a competent doctor by the time he or she graduates. So that's a scary proposition. And in this current climate of open source, open access knowledge, patients, if they have access to knowledge themselves, they will be armed with better knowledge. They can dictate what outcomes they want. And eventually, the doctor competency will fall in place to chase those outcomes. So I think the principle I am pitching for is give your patients medical knowledge. They will know what outcomes they can reach, and the actual stakeholder is deciding how healthcare models should be driven. That's pretty much what I wanted to speak about today. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Aditya. Thanks for bringing this up. I put a question in the chat. I think we're talking about essentially, how consumerization is happening in healthcare.
Mhm.
But there is a lot of information asymmetry between the doctor and the patient, which needs to be bridged before it becomes true consumerized engagement. Even if we were looking at the B2C examples that Ishita was giving,
Yeah.
whether it is PCOS or even I've seen about dermatology, some of these startups that have done these things. They're not able to create the trust because what happens is that the patients that come in are sometimes misled about what this service, online service, can provide. And there are a
Yeah.
lot of wrong promises also made by these companies that are getting into this. And so you get into a situation where things are consumerized, people buy these packages and then they get no outcome and then they go back to their trusted doctors. So it leads to a circle of mistrust in the online players. People are not taking them up. Even in the US, digital therapeutics has been a challenge to take up because a lot of things that in actually the outcomes are not proven. So I
And
think a
also, sir,
combination of what Dr. Aditya is trying to do, where you are actually
yeah,
trying to measure the outcomes,
yeah, yeah.
and then marketing there, that's where the trust in the whole thing
I
can come
think,
up.
just adding to what you said, because I think there has been a lot of focus on the micro, where genes are studied. I don't know. Yesterday, I was reading about some autoimmune encephalitis. It's just a brain inflammation. So they've studied all these channels, receptors, ions, and all sorts of micro elements. But I want to take the focus onto the macros. What are the macros, the host environment factors, which are regulating these micros? Because type 1 diabetes, we do all these auto antibody tests, and they don't at all tell you what outcomes are predictable. Nothing, absolutely useless. So it's the macro which is guiding the micro. And I am obsessed about looking at the macros, the large, measurable, tangible macros.
Let's hear it from the informed people in the audience. So essentially, we try to see can we really succeed in consumerization with the information asymmetry,
Yeah,
which is there in the healthcare. So it's not even a business in healthcare delivery. Yeah.
yeah.
Piyush, do you have any thoughts? You said you were going to do something on an ecosystem. How do you bridge that gap, Piyush?
Yeah, so see, what we are seeing is we're trying to break our head around home care, right?
Hmm.
Post-op recovery
Hmm.
Hmm.
as a problem, rehabilitation, post-op recovery,
Hmm.
chronic condition, geriatric care, and those kind of conditions,
Right.
where protocols are defined, and things are very clear as such. If you look from a medicine and a science perspective, things are very much defined. Obviously, you need some expert guidance on particular situations, but more or less you have a particular protocol to be followed in every situation which is defined.
Hmm.
But
Okay.
still, that trust of the person to
Mm.
go and see a doctor and doctor telling that protocol is still there. Yeah, even
Hmm.
if somebody says that, look, this is American Orthopedic Association who has defined these protocols for a
Yeah,
knee replacement surgery. This is
yeah,
exactly coded what
yes,
the best American Orthopedic Association gives you. I'm giving you exactly the same thing, but still they want to go and sit in front of a doctor and then hear that same thing.
Hmm.
Okay,
mm.
so
Yeah,
how do you bring that trust in areas where I don't want to kind of devalue the importance of the doctor here, but there are a few things where doctors can spare these kind of engagements and do much better stuff.
yes, I
Hmm.
agree with you. Absolutely.
Hmm.
I think the element of trust comes in when it hits at the values of the person. If your advice is aligned with the values and the very rooted values of the person, I think trust is it's a guaranteed outcome.
Oh,
And yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
please go
Hey,
ahead.
hey, 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 Bharat, I had a comment.
Yes,
So
please.
actually, it's a wonderful study by Dr. Aditya and his other colleague.
Hmm.
But
Thank you.
actually, everything I heard tells me that AI and technology is no good. We need doctors who care. I really can't see how this can be scaled. Okay,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm being okay.
no, no, even I can't see myself how this can be scaled, which is why I think one of the questions in the chat was how is the patient motivated to keep a log? Exactly. So this is currently so limited by itself that it requires patient motivation as a starter at least. So those who are not, who are 50-50 on this, who are not motivated, simply cannot get through this, which is why we want to automate data collection. And food plate scanning is one thing where I think we can start scaling up. So the spectroscope is where I'm hedging my bets on. Once that happens and we have an armamentarium of data, the next patient can rely on the last, what, 10,000 patients and see how food plate adjustment can improve their outcomes. So data, the larger our data set, the better we can pitch to the next one.
Lux, what's your take on it? You said you're also trying to do something in this area. I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, see, actually, Dr. Aditya has brought up a very good point. I think this will take time, right? It's a culture change that we are trying to
Yes,
bring in.
absolutely.
And as of today, most of the data, most of the decisions that are taken, are done without data at runtime, right? Because data is not available. It's not because they don't want to do it. It's that data is not available. And I feel so, coming purely from a tech standpoint and a background. So pardon me if the way I look at this, Dr. Aditya, your best bet to scale this up in terms of bringing in that culture change is to go to patient-facing apps like Eka Care, for example, right?
Okay.
And just building up that awareness through those apps, right, to reach more people, for them to start having those logs and make that a part of that patient app, right? And over time, you can bring that into the healthcare ecosystem to have a summarized, and maybe AI generated summary can help there, but then have a summarized, a summary of what the patient does on a daily basis, right? What their food habits are.
But
Sounds
we
great.
currently, I think our biggest problem is we have any funding comes out of our own pocket, and we don't have the funds to create an app or buy hosting database, whatever. So which is why we are relying on WhatsApp. But it will run off very soon. I mean, we can't sustain ourselves on WhatsApp. So
Understand.
I don't know. It's still a very new idea, but I'm committed to this. I mean, it's a good platform to present to, but I am strongly convinced that democratization of knowledge is what should happen. I will, in some form or the other, if not through this, if something else. But I just hate to be a patient in this healthcare system. I would be very scared myself.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Aditya. So thanks, Lex. Dr. Sunil, you had some point.
Yeah, first of all, amazing presentation by Aditya.
Thank you.
And I can see that you come from a very academic, uh, well orchestrated medical education system. And currently also you are in that same setup. So, those three issues that you raised, the three case studies, are in a way anecdotal. And I'll tell you what I have sensed after being in healthcare for so many years is that there are paradox in us saying that we must democratize healthcare. My sense is, and I hope I'm wrong on this, my sense is that ever since the digital storm has come in, there is much less democratization than it was there before when it was just a doctor-patient relationship.
Correct.
The
Yes,
reason
right.
is that today we are heavily dependent on, as Piyush said, on protocols, regulations, to a litigative extent. That
Correct.
if the patient files a suit against you, the first question that the lawyer will ask you is, why didn't you follow protocol? So can he say that, no, I wanted to follow my own sweet will and my doctor allowed me to do it. The app allowed me to do it. We haven't reached that far, at least in India. So it's a long journey, Aditya, but you're on the right track. That I do agree that, if we reach a status where there's enough of patient knowledge, I think that's another 20 years away when the whole of India, 1.4 billion people, will reach that stage
Yeah.
where they begin to own their own. See, it is a pampered system where they all believe, I work for a company where every employee tells me, I'm not bothered. When I fall sick, the company will take care of me. You see, so there's an attitude, and as somebody said, there's a culture shift that will drive this state of ideal thing. But we compliment you, encourage you to keep doing this.
Thank
And
you.
someday we will reach there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Dr. Samir. I had one observation to share, and I would love others to comment on it as well. Um, the kind of personalization that Dr. Aditya mentioned, that he broke into a conversation in the PAGR with the patient about economics.
Mm.
Do you see that happening with technology driven? Even how much ever you improve the user interface, will we be able to achieve that level of personalization? I know I'm actually soon going to get involved with a company which is doing agentic AI for medicine, and the the claim is that it can do as good or better at personalization. But I'd love to hear the point of all the people in this group about it.
Mm.
Lux, you wanted to say something, it looks like.
No, I mean, see, the moment these days you can easily find out when you're chatting with an AI bot, right? At least as of today. So then the personalization goes out the window. At that point, most people are probably not sharing anything, right? So it has to be an aid. That cannot be the AI
It's
that is
too
actually doing
early
the.
for personalization, the
But
kind of
don't you think?
personalization that he was talking about in a conversation. I don't see today's bot being able to do that, right?
Don't you
Correct.
think the eventual outcome would be so much personalization that the patient or the person is basically talking to themselves, super insight into themselves, that they are in a constant dialogue with themselves?
Wow, that's a great way to look at it. That's a great way to
Yeah.
look at it.
So, which is what automation does. Basically, it eliminates human nodes and brings in artificial nodes, and you basically are in dialogue with that environment, with yourself.
So we are running much out of time, but we'd love to hear if anybody who's not yet spoken up speaks up. And I would
Please.
also love to hear from Nishita on how she could help Dr. Aditya. We're a community.
Yeah.
We're supposed to help each other. Can you
Yeah.
help him do a little, make, some improvements which will help PHER?
Yeah. Any comments on our website, please? Thank you.
Lots actually. But
Mm.
I think the main thing that I would say is that you're building something that's really useful and powerful, but it is
Mm.
really important to showcase it in a very consumable format. So right,
Mhm.
like the website has way too much text. Like I saw it when earlier also this was shared on the group. The
Excellent.
website has
Thanks.
way too much text. And unless I am an already motivated person, like if I'm topic motivated, I'm already pre-interested in the stuff you're talking about, I will read through it. But if I'm a
Mm.
reader, then it is very difficult for someone to read so much text. And
Yeah.
mentioned a point earlier about how you really like using authentic images, etc. I really like that. And I think you should use that as your advantage to sort of position the product better. Even
Mhm.
with what you are already doing, there is a lot of scope to build narrative to sort of highlight specific information and help a reader connect to your vision.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think the images add to the rawness of our pitch, perhaps. Yeah, and at the moment, we are not really hedging our bets on getting click-through rate or users from the website. But in fact, I told my website designer I don't want so much text, and she was pitching put more text in. So I will take your consideration and thank you so much. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, feel free to ping me anytime you want to like.
awesome. Thank you. Very kind. Thank you so much.
That's great. So we've not heard some other people speak. Dr. Bindumati, Joyati, Soma, any one of you, please go ahead.
Um, yeah, this is Joyati. I just had one question. I think this is an excellent initiative. I'm part of some of the PAGR groups along with Dr. Rakesh Biswas.
Oh, I see. Thank you. Thank you for coming
Yeah,
along.
and my only question always is how do such projects get funded? I mean, that is one of the ones. The business
Yeah.
model is, I mean,
Mm.
nothing can continue forever unless there's a sound
Correct.
business model behind
Correct.
it. And
Correct.
I would say most patients are willing to pay for these services like they would for any consulting services. So I think it's fair enough to,
Mm.
expect patients to pay directly. I'm not sure
Yeah.
what could be the possible.
Yeah, yeah, I get you. I think my experiences from Telangana. So I am from Hyderabad, Telangana. The experiences from Telangana have been opposite to what you're saying. So we tried our absolute best to even pitch in with 200 rupees or something. But the conversion rate was extremely low. But that doesn't disappoint me. It doesn't disappoint me as much. I am thinking that the biggest bottleneck we face is data collection. As long as patients are getting insights into themselves, they will see value with what we are doing. But the logging is where they may start having fatigue. Maybe automation of data collection is where I see the bottleneck. So which is why I'm hoping the spectroscope can be developed so that food plate analysis can be automated. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
The food plate
No, that's very
analysis would
valid
be
points.
something
I
great.
think you're talking about more capture through devices. Have you tried
Mhm.
speech recognition?
Speech recognition of
With
what?
the patient giving their notes, just talking them out instead of typing them out.
Oh yeah, of course. We do have lots of patients who send out voice messages, and in fact, the third case we were talking about, the 63-year-old gentleman, he writes up beautiful narratives about taking an auto rickshaw, going to an iftar party. That was fantastic. So some of them actually enjoy the writing part, which basically allows for some reflection.
Okay,
But
sounds good.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anybody else? Manish, Sadhna, any question, any observations? Please go ahead. Before we close, we'll close in like a couple of minutes from now. It's
Yeah, this is
9:45.
this is Dr. Sadhana Sharma here.
Yes,
So,
doctor.
Oh
yeah,
yeah. Hi.
hi, Dr. Aditya. So, yeah, I have been a part of this group and basically being a teacher myself, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I totally concur with Dr. Aditya that what we are looking at through this is not just the patient's angle. I think, as such, overall, the world over, we are seeing that there are deteriorating standards of medical education, which somehow
Absolutely.
reflect in the future healthcare. You know, because
Yeah.
they are one of the primary guys who are going to be involved in the entire healthcare system. So unless we have these generation, these doctors who are molded the right way, you know how this it's like, as it's like a Swiss cheese pattern. So if the
Mm.
weakest link is the one which is to be blamed, so it's not just for patient's angle. Like, yes, it does look quite it doesn't look very feasible for application at patient's end, but why not for medical education? You know,
Correct.
like Dr.
Absolutely.
Aditya said, we are following different guidelines. You know, different associations are there. Each doctor has its own perspectives, and it's probably because of these lawsuits and all these you know, the differing opinions amongst the healthcare professionals, that we all came for these guidelines. You know, and no guideline, no protocol fits for each individual. As we know, God has created each individual as a very different being. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so it is not one fit for all. So that way, if we inculcate, so that Dr. Viswas, Dr. Aditya, they have really done a wonderful work at a rural medical college where they've trained so many of students. So can we come out with something for at least for the improvement of the medical education, so that their future doctors are, you know, they are much
Yeah.
better off, and we are safer in their hands, you know. Yeah, that's what
I,
I feel.
I
I feel
think
it has two applications. Yeah.
Thank you. I think in terms of litigation, at least in the NHS, if you are frankly documenting what discussion you had with the patient, that in spite of the guidelines suggesting for this, I think this would be the best outcome, and both of us have agreed. I don't
Yeah.
think a lawyer is coming and suing you left and right. I don't think so. I disagree with that. I'm sorry. Because
Yep.
if the discussion in both in a conscientious way
Yes.
agrees that the patient and the doctor have agreed to this line of management, no judge or lawyer is coming after you, which is why I am not scared of litigation. And I will never practice in a litigative way at all, ever in my life.
But you
I'd
know,
rather quit being a doctor.
So if I
yeah,
may
but Dr.
just have
Aditya,
a
maybe in the US it's a little different, and that's
No,
why
sir,
the
I
burden.
disagree with that. No, as long as the patient is kept in the loop, I don't think any court is coming after you.
No, if time permits, if I may just have a
Of
fraction of
course,
a
yeah.
second, I would just like to bring to your notice that I had this patient yesterday who had been visiting n number of doctors, with her diabetes, and it has become brittle diabetes. And it was such a important thing that no one has told her, which she was being referred to nutritionist, she was going to, for graded exercises patterns, but no one in person told her like this is what you have to be eating.
Mm,
So, like we
mm,
have in our PAJR groups, they will be sharing their food plates every day and
correct.
each time they have. And that's just wonderful. So when I told her, I took an entire history and what she had been taking, she made a chart of that. 2 days I was
Mm,
following up with the chart and with her blood glucose monitoring. Today she had to attend a meeting, and all these 6 months she said, I was never alert in my meetings. And after ages, I
wow.
felt so alert and so happy.
Wow.
So
That
that
is the
is what,
outcome. Yes.
yeah,
Beautiful.
that is what
Beautiful.
this PAGR is.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So,
So yeah, that's it. That's how I would like to be treated,
yes.
being a doctor myself. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Dr.
Yeah.
Sadhna. Thank you, Dr. Aditya. Ishwar, please go ahead. I'll keep this going till people are there to talk.
Hi,
Whenever you want to stop, we'll stop.
hi, I'm
Yes, sir.
Uma. Actually, my surname is Ishwara, so I don't know why Zoom keeps showing as Ishwar. So,
Oh,
Okay,
uh,
sorry.
sorry.
Please go ahead, Dr. Uma.
Apologies. Yeah.
yeah. So I agree with Dr. Aditya in the fact that so long as the patient and the doctor are on the same page and it is well documented, litigation cannot happen. The problem is in our country, the record keeping is I'm very sorry to say is very dismal.
Shambolic. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
People, even if I have a record with me, a proper record as a patient, I carry, most of the doctors don't even see it. I'm a dentist by profession. So when I
Mm,
go to my medical counterpart, I have to explain this is what it is, and I can see how they brush me off. So I think if some way the history taking can be simplified, that will make life easy for documentation for because soon litigation will happen in India. It's just
yeah.
going to happen pretty
Absolutely.
soon.
Yes. Yes.
People
Yes.
are aware, people know, and there are and thanks to WhatsApp medicine or Google,
Yeah.
Dr. Google, people are aware. Whether right or wrong, that's a different matter, but
Yes.
people will start questioning. And so the best way is if everything is documented. And as an
Correct.
academician myself, I've been drilling in my students, said, please document whatever you do. That is the
Correct.
only thing which will ever save you if,
Yeah.
God forbid, you ever end up in litigation. So I
Yes.
guess with AI or something, if the record taking can be simplified, it'll make life easier, because that's really time consuming. And that's why most
Indeed.
people avoid it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's
Thank you, Dr. Uma.
thanks.
Yes, Soma, please go ahead.
Okay, just a couple of points or observations. One is on the scalability side. I think it's
Mhm.
extremely important to look at a little bit from a business perspective for the scalability of the product and business, right? So the way how you can actually measure that is the willingness of patients to pay money to you early in the cycle. If
And
you
I will tell you, it's in single digit, even fractions of single digit percent, at least in Telangana. Perhaps in West Bengal, it is fairly good. And we have some patients from Australia and Singapore who are absolutely willing to pay because their access to healthcare is much more limited than in India. But I think, at least in some states of India, it's been dissimilar, to say the least.
no, I completely understand, Aditya, but please start charging, because only like when you see
Yeah,
that money, when a
yeah.
patient or customer pays money, they
Mm.
actually value it. If you give something free,
Yeah,
generally
correct. I
people
agree.
don't value it. So
Yeah.
I would certainly suggest that start charging some money, whether it could be 1 rupee, 10 rupee, $10. Please start charging
Yeah,
on a
yeah, I
monthly
have to. I
basis.
get you. Yes, yes, yes. And we are adding genuine potential and value to our patients. So it's not like this is fleecing off or a rent-seeking transaction. This is proper value addition.
So you must certainly charge. And again, from a geography perspective, earning 1 rupee is very difficult compared to earning $1.
Of course. Yeah.
Right. So
But on this point, so I had a point observation. Trust is kind of inversely proportional to the amount of money you charge.
Yeah.
So if you increase your charges, the trust goes down. I get a lot of, I've been involved with the oncology startup these days, and
Mm.
most patients end up going to 3 or 4 doctors when they're advised for an onco procedure, right? It's a life-threatening thing. It's the most dangerous
Indeed.
thing that can happen. So you end up going to at least 3 people, and the one they trust is the one who's not charging them, a family doctor or somebody known to them, or somebody
Yeah.
from Tata Memorial who's not taking any money. There is
Mm.
this consumer perception that the moment I pay, if I pay especially a lot, then I'm going to be, I don't know whether I should trust that much, but if somebody is not charging me, I'd probably trust them more. I don't know. That's a
And
cultural thing,
just
maybe.
just adding to what you're saying, sir, the previous presentation, there was a flow chart of product link growth. I think that would apply very well to first world nations. But maybe when it comes to third world, because our values are completely different and we are not, I would say, as civilized as they are, as moral as they are, the diagram perhaps goes elsewhere. It just digresses to something else. So, yeah, you have to contextualize your business model to local populations.
Anyway, thank you. I think you should call it a night. It's pretty late,
Oh,
9:55.
yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Ishita, and thank you, Dr. Aditya, for coming, and all the participants for joining
My
and staying
pleasure.
on. Thank you so much for being there.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you, and good
Aditya,
night.
Have a good time.
all the best. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Have a
you,
good time.
Bharat. Yeah,
Thank
bye
you.
bye.
Bye bye.